Elon Musk surprises Black Millionaire as he prepares game-changing proposal. The city smoldered under neon lights and restless winds. Towering skyscrapers cut jagged shadows into the night sky. People hustled beneath them like ants, always moving, always watching. Somewhere high above the chaos, in a glass-walled penthouse that felt more like a command ship, Ethan Reed stared out over the city that crushed and created everything in its path. Ethan's fingers tapped impatiently on the holographic screen projected before him. His face was tight, hard to read, a mask shaped by billions, power, and secrets. There was a storm inside him, heavier than the weight of his fortune. Suddenly, a message blinked through the static. A name, a face. Marcus Johnson, a man who'd clawed his way up from the streets that baked under the city's cold indifference. Marcus was no ordinary guest. Charismatic, resilient, a self-made millionaire with roots dug deep into neighborhoods Ethan only glimpsed. When Ethan reached out, it wasn't just business, it was a gamble, a chance to rewrite the rules of this city's strangling traffic, and maybe its soul. But Marcus had learned long ago not to trust the shiny promises wrapped in gold. When the door opened to Ethan's world, it gleamed like a faceless god's shrine, the kind of place where ambition fed on power, and power fed on fear. They sat down. Marcus smiled, but inside his chest tightened, his heart pounding like a warning drum. Ethan unveiled the project, a new urban mobility breakthrough, flying pods weaving between towers, smart roads alive with AI's humming pulse. It sounded like salvation, until Marcus started digging. There were cracks beneath the gloss. Maps of neighborhoods excluded from the rollout. Data streams showing wealth corridors prioritized, while poor zones got locked out. The power wasn't meant to spread. It was meant to sharpen the divide. Marcus felt the ground tilt beneath him. A cold wave of doubt washing. And then came the bombshell, flashing cold as ice. A secret from Marcus's past, tied dangerously close to Ethan's own dark history. A connection buried under years. Secrets muttered in hushed tones. Lines crossed, debts owed. The revelation slammed into Marcus's gut. Suddenly, this wasn't about city transformation anymore. It was a chess game with real lives as pawns. The city's pulse outside grew frantic. 1,000,000 lives hanging on the edge of something they couldn't yet see. Ethan's eyes searched Marcus's, unreadable but intense. The air thickened with tension, the weight of choices heavy like lead. Could Marcus trust this titan who'd offered a hand? Or was he just another piece in a ruthless plan? The moment crackled. Then, the unthinkable. A sharp knock shattered the charged silence. The door swung open. An unexpected guest stood there, face shadowed, bearing news that could unravel their fragile alliance and shake the entire city. Both men froze. The fate of thousands! Ho! What was this news, and what would they do with it? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Ho 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 ho! Big, great, goddamn song! Oh, what is this new? Is even fringier, because we're getting too complicated. Ha 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 ha! But don't worry, we'll make this upbeat story worth listening to. Be sure to follow me for the magic. I have all sorts of planned magic. Oh yeah! And I brought an interesting basque right over the top of this because our guests will be well put together. Wow! This algorithm really works even better than I thought it would? You think I'm lost? Yeah! That's why the algorithm is so good at making me work. Frank, I'm always down for that. My kids aren't making me work. Also, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know Where's the backup? The newcomer asked, voice steady but laced with urgency. A familiar face, Nico Rivera, the city's most influential tech journalist. He was known for uncovering secrets, the kind that could shake foundations and ruin dynasties. Marcus hadn't expected this. The air thickened, like the city before a storm. "What's going on?" he demanded, heartbeat quickening. His gaze darted between Ethan and Nico. Something was off. Nico ignored him, locking eyes with Ethan. "You thought you could keep this from the public? This isn't just about transportation anymore." He paused, drawing in a breath like he was stoking a fire. "I've seen the data, Ethan. You're burying a corruption scandal worse than anything we imagined, and it leads straight back to you." Marcus's stomach dropped. Corruption? He leaned in closer, the world around him narrowing. "What do you mean?" The room buzzed with an electric current as the reality of the moment settled over him like a cold shroud. "Some people think this project is a breakthrough," Nico said, voice dropping to a whisper. "But it's really a cover-up. You're not just weaving smart roads, you're burying the truth about your dealings. The money diverted from poor neighborhoods? It's financing your political allies and silencing opponents. Lives are at stake, Ethan." A sharp gasp filled the air from the corner where a third set of eyes, Ethan's right-hand man, watched, expression stunned, as if the floor had vanished beneath him. It felt like the skyscrapers outside were leaning in, trying to hear every word. Ethan's facade crumbled, revealing the dread simmering beneath. His eyes flicked to Marcus, pleading for understanding. "You don't know what's at stake. I'm not the villain here." But even he sounded unsure. Marcus didn't know what to believe. He searched Ethan's face, looking for truth. "You were using me." The words came out heavy, weighted with betrayal. So much trust built on a shaky foundation. How had it unraveled so fast? Wait. The confusion raced through his mind like wildfire. "You brought me here for help, to fight for the community." And now, Ethan cut him off, voice strained. "I wanted to help, but people don't want the truth. They want progress, and to them, this project looks like salvation. But we can only go forward if—" "Forward?" Nico interrupted, incredulous. "While people suffer, you think a shiny pod will make it right?" Outside, a siren blared, slicing through the moment. In the distance, a protest flickered to life, anger simmering, merging with the panic inside the penthouse. Marcus's heartbeat echoed in his ears. The weight of it all threatened to crush him. Then, with a sudden burst of clarity, Nico reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive, and slammed it onto the table. "This is proof. Your lives are about to collide in a way you've never prepared for. You have to decide now. Do you stay silent, or do you expose everything? The room fell still, the heavy silence hanging like a fog, thick and suffocating. The city's pulse quickened outside, restless, aware of changes brewing within these walls. Marcus's heart raced. This wasn't just a proposal anymore. It was a crossroads. What stood before him was more than a project. It was his chance to reshape the future or risk losing everything he cared about. "What do we do now?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. But before anyone could respond, sirens grew louder, drowning out their thoughts. They pulsed like a warning bell in the night. The stakes had escalated beyond anyone's control, and outside, chaos was breaking loose. The door swung open like a scene from a thriller, and there stood the unexpected visitor, face masked by the darkness. Ethan and Marcus exchanged a stunned glance before focus returned to the newcomer. Tension crackled in the air, thick as smoke, and both men held their breath. "I'm sorry to interrupt," the figure said, head slightly bowed, voice steady but laced with urgency. It was Lena, Ethan's former business partner, the one rumored to have vanished after crossing too many lines. A ghost, thought dead, now standing before them, alive and well. Her presence shattered the tension like glass, sending a chill down Marcus's spine. "We need to talk, now." Ethan's expression morphed from surprise to a hard edge, eyes narrowing, like a hawk zeroing in on prey. Marcus felt the air shift, a storm brewing in the room's charged energy. What could Lena possibly want? And why now? "You shouldn't be here, Lena," Ethan said, voice low, almost threatening. The silence felt like a ticking clock, every passing second amplifying the stakes. Lena straightened, her face illuminated by the city lights shining through the glass. "You need to think twice about this project," she warned, urgency spilling from her as if she was barely keeping the tides at bay. "It's not what you think. The data is—" Suddenly, she hesitated. A flicker of fear crossed her eyes, as if the shadows were whispering secrets meant to be buried. Marcus leaned forward, pulse racing. "What data? What do you know?" "Ethan, you don't know the half of it," Lena breathed, voice shaking. The confidence she'd arrived with was fracturing under unseen pressure, and Marcus felt the electric pull of an unfolding truth. "Your project aims to reroute funds, channel resources, but it's going to devastate entire communities." Marcus clenched his fists, heart pounding. Suddenly, everything he'd suspected about Ethan's operation felt weighty. Not just in ambition, but in malpractice. "Shut her down, Ethan," hissed Marcus, a primal urge rising. "What does she mean?" Lena backed away a step, vulnerability mixing with steely resolve. "The data stream you think is pure is corrupted. It's designed to erase whole areas. Projects tied to your roots, Marcus. My networks have eyes on them, I swear." A jolt hit Marcus's chest. Memories flooded in, promises made, lives changing, a planet where he thought real change could thrive. A painful realization burned. This wasn't about public transport anymore. This was an all-out war on the vulnerable. He looked at Ethan, the man who'd offered a hand, but felt on the verge of dragging him under. "You used me," Marcus whispered, voice barely holding. Used us both. Ethan, Lena pressed, urgency breaking through. We can... But before she could finish, the room exploded with noise. Sirens wailed from the streets below. A storm siren echoing chaos up to their pristine heights. Marcos Terne, wild panic sweeping in as he wondered what had just triggered this wave of alarm. "What's happening?" he demanded, heart racing. Ethan moved like a shadow, phone already in hand, directions flying off his tongue, but his face twisted in confusion. They shouldn't be here. Not now. Suddenly, the walls felt claustrophobic. Betrayal wrapping around Marcus like a tightening noose. The very foundations of their alliance were crumbling. Another knock echoed, this time louder, harsher. Open up! Ethan froze. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping up his spine. Look, Lena whispered, voice low and urgent. This isn't over. You can't trust anyone, not even me. The tense air thickened again, holding them in suspense as he faced Ethan and said the only thing that felt true. What have you done? And with that, the world twisted underfoot, leaving him wavering between loyalty and despair. The sirens howled, but behind those walls, the real fight had just begun. Marcus's heart raced, hands trembling as he faced the flickering uncertainty in Ethan's eyes. The room seemed to shrink, air thick with unspoken accusations. Every second stretched, and the silence roared around them, drowning out the chaos outside. What have you done? Marcus repeated, voice strained as he stepped back, vulnerability crashing over him like a wave. Ethan opened his mouth, but before he could respond, the door burst open again, slamming against the wall. A group of armed officers charged in, faces masked, eyes scanning the room. The sirens blared louder, echoing in the confined space, a storm of authority crashing down on. The tension shifted, thick enough to slice through. What's happening? Marcus shouted, his pulse pounding in his ears. The air felt electric, surging with adrenaline and fear. Lena stepped back, eyes wide, but didn't lower her gaze. They've uncovered everything, Ethan. It's no longer just whispers. You need to... Shut up! Ethan shouted, his voice jagged like glass. He turned towards the nearest officer, hands raised in mock surrender, but his face was twisted in desperation. You don't understand! On the ground now! The officer shouted again, the command ringing with authority. That left no room for argument. But before anyone could move, the lights flickered once. Twisted shadows danced on the walls. A voice boomed from outside, cutting through the noise. This is a raid! You're all coming with us! An explosion rocked the building. Windows shattered, glass raining down like confetti. A massive blast shook the foundation, sending Marcus sprawling to the ground, his vision darkening in a haze of fear and confusion. What the hell? Marcus gasped, trying to regain his bearings. But as the dust cleared, he saw something he couldn't comprehend. There, standing amidst the chaos and debris, was Marcus's estranged brother, Jamie, disheveled, eyes wide with anger, and somehow desperately alive. Jamie! Marcus's voice cracked, heart plummeting into a chasm of disbelief. What are you doing here? Guys, get out! Jamie yelled, stepping forward, voice thick with a mixture of urgency and ferocity. You have to trust me. We're out of time. Ethan's face paled. What do you mean? This is a setup. You shouldn't be here. Jamie shot him a glare that could cut through steel. You think you're the only one who can play the game? This isn't just about you anymore. He turned, looking directly at Marcus, desperation dripping from every word. They're coming for you. For all of us. We have to expose this, now! Everything shifted in an instant. The brother Marcus thought he'd lost to the streets, was back. But now, in the midst of a conspiracy that threatened to swallow them whole. Your project is built on a lie. Jamie continued, locking eyes with Ethan. They're using you, Ethan, and you don't even see it. Marcus's mind raced. Was Jamie telling the truth? Was Ethan the puppet or the puppeteer? Suddenly, the officers advanced, eyes narrowing at Jamie's boldness. Another blast echoed from the streets below, rattling the floors, chaos swirling like a living thing. Lena! Marcus turned, searching her face for answers. Is this true? This about Ethan? It's all connected, she replied, panic seeping into her voice. The funding, the corruption. Jamie's right. We're all caught in this web. Another officer shouted, ready to pull the trigger, the tension shifting from uncertainty to imminent danger. Run! Jamie yelled, eyes wide with determination as he stepped between the officers and Marcus. I'll hold them off! No! Marcus screamed, a deep fear for his brother surging within him. Now! Jamie shouted, voice hoarse. Trust me. Get out of here. I'll find you. Just like that, the world fell away again, leaving Marcus torn between loyalty and fear. Could he trust Jamie? What had he stepped into? And as the dust continued to swirl, uncertainty gripped his heart. Inside the whirlwind of revelations and danger, one question haunted him. Could he escape the nightmare unfolding around them before it consumed them all? The unexpected guest stepped into the room, the atmosphere thickening instantly. Marcus felt his heartbeat spike, each beat louder than the last. The stranger was cloaked in shadows, the flickering lights of the city dancing around him like ghosts from the past. A hush fell over the penthouse, tension wrapping around them like a vice. Who are you? Ethan snapped, his facade cracking just a bit. Didn't you have an appointment? Marcus's gaze sharpened, curiosity battling his caution. He leaned forward, eager to hear the visitors spill whatever bombshell they carried. The man took a step closer, face still obscured. My name is David Carter, he said, voice low and raspy, like it had been dipped in grit. And I have something for Marcus, something he needs to know. Ethan's expression soured, like tasting vinegar. You're trespassing. Get out. Now. But David didn't flinch. He turned to Marcus, eyes piercing through the dark. Your brother, Marcus. He's alive. The words landed like a stone in water, rippling shock across the room. Marcus's stomach twisted, disbelief flaring in his chest. What did you just say? His voice trembled, the strength draining from his legs. Ethan scoffed, dismissive, but Marcus couldn't look away from David. This wasn't the kind of game they played. His brother had been gone for years, swallowed by a world that chewed up the weak. You're lying, Marcus spat, but doubt wormed its way into his mind. Am I? David replied sharply, lifting a hand to reveal a worn-out photo. A faded snapshot of a younger Marcus and a boy with bright, hopeful eyes. This was taken last week. He's working for someone powerful. The room spun. Questions swamped his mind. How could this be? He and his brother had been inseparable until the unthinkable happened. A tragic accident? No, it was deeper. Something unspoken hung heavy between them. Shadows of betrayal. Marcus felt a lump in his throat, memories fighting to break through. "Stop!" Ethan barked, anger boiling over. "Get out! You're not interfering in our project! You think you can just waltz in here?" David locked eyes with Marcus, holding his gaze steady. "Your brother needs you. He's caught in something dangerous. They want him back, and they're not going to let him go." The words hung like a thick fog, suffocating Marcus in their reality. His brother alive? What had he gotten tangled in? Suddenly the room plunged into chaos. A blaring siren roared from outside, the heavy sound rippling through the walls. Marcus's heart raced, his instinct screaming something was wrong. Shadows moved outside the window. But what suddenly? Shadows. Lights flashing as police cruisers flooded the street, their red and blue beams piercing the night. Ethan's calm demeanor shattered. "What's happening?" Panic laced his voice as he approached the window, peering out to the unfolding chaos. David never broke eye contact with Marcus, urgency boiling beneath the surface. "You have to choose, Marcus. Trust him?" He jerked his head towards Ethan. "Or follow me and find your brother." Before Marcus could respond, a hand smashed into the door. Wood splintering as officers poured into the penthouse. "Hands in the air," one shouted, gun drawn. Time slowed. Faces turned pale. Choices narrowed. Marcus felt the weight of everything. Betrayal, hope, danger, crushing down on him. He looked between Ethan, whose face contorted in rage and fear, and David, who radiated raw determination. The fate of his brother, his future, the very city hung in the balance. And then, as the officers surged forward, the lights flickered ominously, plunging them into darkness. The moment hung there, thick with silence. All eyes darted to the door as it creaked open, revealing a tall figure shrouded in darkness. The unexpected guest stepped inside, pushing the boundaries of the room's heavy tension. Ethan shifted sharply, the air in his lungs rushing out in a low hiss. "Sharon." Marcus breathed, stunned. It was his sister, the one person he hadn't seen in years, the one person who knew his past better than anyone else. Her eyes scanned the room, locking onto Ethan with a look of unmistakable understanding. This was more than just a surprise visit. It was an unveiling, and she was the key. "Marcus," she started, her voice trembling with urgency. The emotion cracked through her steely demeanor. "I didn't want to, but I had to come. You're in danger." Ethan hardened, but the quiver of uncertainty betrayed him. "What are you talking about?" Sharon stepped forward, fingers quaking. "It's about the project. You need to know what you're getting into. They're using you as bait, Marcus. This isn't about urban development. It's about control." Every beat of Marcus's heart thudded louder in his ears. He had long known the city was brutal, but now it felt predatory, its teeth sinking into those it viewed as weak. Images of his childhood flooded back, gunshots in the night, streets filled with broken dreams. "Who's using me?" "They've been watching," she whispered, trembling as if she could feel the weight of eyes tracking her. The families in those excluded neighborhoods, the ones left behind, they're planning to rise up. They think the project will destroy their last hope. They're not just fighting for their survival. They want to drag you down with them. Ethan shifted, eyes narrowing to slits. This isn't an insurrection. It's a partnership. Is it? Sharon challenged, her voice slicing through the air. When was the last time you've really looked at the project? It's a smokescreen. Access and privilege for the few, while the many drown. And your hands? She faltered, letting the weight of what she said hang heavy in the room. They're covered in blood. The words hung cold and sharp, like a knife pressed against Marcus's gut. Every decision felt tainted. Were they all pawns? The $1,000,000 smile on Ethan's face suddenly felt like a mask slipping. Was he as innocent as he liked to portray? Ethan exploded, fists clenching. Enough! This is no time for claims without proof. That's what you think, Sharon shot back, pulse racing. But you have no idea what's truly at stake. They're in this room, hiding in plain sight, ready to tear down anything that threatens their grip. And the moment you step closer to the truth, Marcus stood rigid, torn. His world began to tremble, entire thoughts crashing as fear intertwined with betrayal. Would he have to choose between the brutal honesty of his sister and the gleaming ambitions of a man he barely knew? Outside, the city thrummed, restless and roaring. The pulse of the crowds pressed against the glass walls. But inside this penthouse, silence screamed. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A soft thud echoed. A power surge? Or something more sinister? Both men froze, eyes darting toward the shadowed corners, as a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor. Get down! Marcus shouted, adrenaline surging. Before he could grasp what was happening, an explosion of sound shattered the night. The windows burst open, glass raining in like despair. Chaos erupted. The fragile alliance between the three was torn apart by a force so huge it made every faction seem like a whisper against the night. What had Sharon known? What would be the cost of truth? The looming darkness outside began to close in, and in that pulse of dread, the world flipped upside down. What had they just stepped into? The door swung open, and the atmosphere shifted. A figure stood there, face obscured by a dark hood. A chill clawed its way into the room, wrapping around Marcus and Ethan like an unwelcome guest. The air felt electric, charged with unspoken words. Marcus Johnson? The voice rasped, low and urgent. Marcus glanced at Ethan, whose expression barely flickered. Equally tense, both men refrained from speaking, each second stretching into eternity. The figure stepped in, pushing the door behind them with a thud that echoed in the silence. A whisper of something dark wafted between them, thick with secret weight. I've got something you need to know, the stranger continued, lowering the hood. What was revealed sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. It was Claire, an old friend turned informant, her eyes wide with fear and resolution. They're coming, even now. What do you mean? Marcus steadied his voice, though his heart raced. The room felt smaller, walls whispering betrayal. Ethan's plans, they go deeper than you think. This isn't just business, it's control. He's tied to the networks you fought against, the ones I've been digging into. Claire's voice trembled. You're not just a pawn, Marcus. You're the target. Ethan's face fell still, the mask cracking just enough to let a flash of vulnerability peek through. It sent a pulse of unease into the air, amplifying the tension. Each second stretched taut, like a wire ready to snap. "Claire!" Marcus breathed, panic coiling in his chest. "What are you saying?" "Your past," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It connects to him, those choices you made, the sacrifices. They'll come back to haunt you, and they're already here." Every heartbeat drum-rolled in Marcus's ears, drowning out the world around them. His pulse quickened. Memories surfaced, faces that lived in shadows, choices that tormented him. The day he'd left a life of crime behind. And now to think they were haunting him. "What do you mean?" Ethan's tone was a mix of challenge and apprehension, an edge forming in his otherwise smooth facade. "You can't just drop that bomb and walk away." Claire's face hardened. "You should have left this alone, Ethan. The city isn't what you think. The tech, the wealth, it's woven in blood. You're selling chains, not freedom." The air shifted again, heavy with implications that drummed a rhythm of fear. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him, an earthquake of confusion and urgency. Could he trust Claire? Did he even know Ethan? "Enough," Ethan snapped, voice rising like a tide. "You think you can walk in here and tell me how to run my empire? The city needs this. I can bring hope." "But at what cost?" Claire challenged. "Your hope is built on the ashes of the neighborhoods you're ignoring. You're playing a dangerous game." Suddenly, the sharp sound of a distant siren cut through the moment, a harbinger of something looming. Ethan's eyes flickered to Claire, the tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Everything threatened to spiral. The siren grew louder, piercing the air with urgency. An unsettling realization washed over Marcus. This wasn't just about them. It was deeper, darker, a tide threatening a crash. "Marcus, listen to me," Claire said, desperation clawing at her voice. "You need to get out now. It's only gonna get uglier." Before he could respond, the room lurched with noise. Shouts echoed outside, commotion heating the night. Faces began to gather below, illuminated by red and blue lights piercing through glass, shadowing their figure against the chaos. Ethan turned, eyes wide, suddenly stripped of confidence. What the hell is happening? The city roared, but there was something larger at play. The clock was ticking, each second a reminder that a storm was brewing. In that moment, a bullet of fear lodged itself deep in Marcus's throat. Lives were at stake, and alliances were shifting like sand beneath their feet. What did Claire know? Why were voices rising in the streets? And most importantly, could they trust each other when shadows of the past could tear everything apart? The answers eluded him as the world outside erupted. And as chaos spilled into the room, Marcus realized they were all in deeper than they had ever planned. The moment hung there, thick with silence. All eyes darted to the door as it creaked open, revealing a tall figure shrouded in darkness. A chill clawed its way into the room, wrapping around Marcus and Ethan like an unwelcome guest. The air felt electric, charged with Marcus Johnson. The voice rasped, low and urgent. Marcus glanced at Ethan, whose expression barely flickered. Equally tense, both men refrained from speaking, each second stretching into eternity. The figure stepped in, pushing the door behind them with a thud that echoed in the silence. A whisper of something dark wafted between them, thick with secret weight. "I've got something you need to know," the stranger continued, lowering the hood. What was revealed sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. It was Claire, an old friend turned informant, her eyes wide with fear and resolution. "They're coming, even now." "What do you mean?" Marcus steadied his voice, though his heart raced. The room felt smaller, walls whispering betrayal. "Ethan's plans, they go deeper than you think. This isn't just business, it's control. He's tied to the networks you fought against, the ones I've been digging into." Claire's voice trembled. "You're not just a pawn, Marcus. You're the target." Ethan's face fell still, the mask cracking just enough to let a flash of vulnerability peek through. It sent a pulse of unease into the air, amplifying the tension. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him, an earthquake of confusion and urgency. Could he trust Claire? Did he even know Ethan? "Enough!" Ethan snapped, voice rising like a tide. "You think you can walk in here and tell me how to run my empire? The city needs this. I can bring hope." "But at what cost?" Claire challenged. "Your hope is built on the ashes of the neighborhoods you're ignoring. You're playing a dangerous game." Suddenly, the sharp sound of a distant siren cut through the moment, a harbinger of something looming. Ethan's eyes flickered to Claire, the tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Everything threatened to spiral. The siren grew louder, piercing the air with urgency. An unsettling realization washed over Marcus. This wasn't just about them. It was deeper, darker, a tide threatening a crash. "Marcus, listen to me," Claire said, desperation clawing at her voice. "You need to get out. Now! It's only gonna get uglier." Before he could respond, the room lurched with noise. Shouts echoed outside, commotion heating the night. Faces began to gather below, illuminated by red and blue lights, piercing through glass, shadowing their figure against the chaos. Ethan turned, eyes wide, suddenly stripped of confidence. "What the hell is happening?" The city roared, but there was something larger at play. The clock was ticking, each second a reminder that a storm was brewing. Suddenly, without warning, a figure burst through the door. A man wearing a police uniform, but with a wild look in his eyes. "Get back!" he shouted, gun drawn and trembling. "They're on to us! The whole thing is a trap!" Gasps filled the room as Marcus's blood ran cold. "A trap? Everyone here is marked," he shouted, voice cracking. "Including you, Marcus! It's all rigged." Marcus felt his heart seize. "What the hell are you talking about?" But before the officer could respond, a loud crash resonated from the hallway, followed by a flurry of footsteps. "I'm sorry, Marcus," Claire gasped, eyes wide. "They've infiltrated everywhere. Trust no one." Then, just as the reality of fear reached its peak, Ethan lunged forward, grabbing the officer. "What do you want?" The man's eyes shone with regret. "To save you, damn it! She wasn't supposed to be here. Get out, now." Confusion mixed with raw panic. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, a flicker of recognition crossed the officer's face. "This isn't the first time you've been set up. You did it to me!" Marcus's stomach twisted. "You know him?" "Once, but we don't have time for this," Ethan stammered, his voice dropping as if admitting something. "We need to go while we still can." Without thinking, Marcus grabbed Claire's hand tight. "What is happening, Claire? We need answers." But then, a blinding light flooded the penthouse, fear clawing at Marcus's throat. He shielded his eyes, heart racing at the unknown threat closing in. A voice boomed through the chaos. "You think you're hiding? We know every move you make. The time for games is over." Marcus's stomach twisted as the shadows began to close in. He felt Claire's grip tighten, but then he turned on Ethan. "What did you do? What is this really about?" Ethan's expression darkened, and suddenly everything shifted. The lights dimmed around them, shadows creeping closer. "You don't want to know the truth, Marcus. You're not ready." And just when Marcus thought he might find clarity in the storm, he was confronted with the chilling reality that everything he thought he knew, everything he thought he was fighting for, was a smokescreen for a game much larger than he had imagined. The world tilted as the room reverberated with gasps and cries. With every ounce of courage, Marcus faced Ethan again, eyes burning with raw determination. "Then show me! I want to know!" But as the walls of the penthouse crumbled around them, the chaos outside turned into a surge of fate. The door burst open yet again, and a crowd flooded in, faces distorted with rage and betrayal. "Together for the truth!" they yelled, bodies pressing in, forcing a confrontation that was impossible to escape. And amidst the uprising, the lines of loyalty and truth blurred. The air thickened with confrontations, and in that exact moment, the world shifted once more. What was the true cost of the fight ahead? What was buried in the heart of the city that Marcus had yet to uncover? The crowd pressed tight against the walls, their faces twisted with anger and fear. Marcus felt the heat of their breaths, the pulse of their emotions thrumming through the air. Chaos swirled. Shadows danced like angry specters in the dim light, and the walls seemed to close in. "What do you want from us?" Marcus shouted, his voice barely cutting through the rising din. But then, from within the crowd, someone stepped forward. A man with wild eyes and a voice that shook. "We want the truth. You think you can pull the wool over our eyes? Enough!" Ethan's voice cracked through the chaos, desperation surfacing. He stood there, hands raised. But the eyes around him were like daggers. This isn't what it looks like. But the truth, what was truth anymore? "Right!" Claire shouted back, her eyes flashing. "You've been playing games with lives. We're not just collateral." Marcus felt a knot twist tighter in his gut. He turned to Claire, and her blue eyes were wide with fear. "You don't have to do this. We can find a way out." But as he opened his mouth to respond, the shadows came alive, and the crowd surged forward. Inside him, a tremor of panic flared. From the back, a shout broke the crescendo. "Get down!" A flash of metal glinted in the air. drawing everyone's attention like moths to flame. Eyes widened, breaths hitched, the world froze for a heartbeat as time slowed down. And then, bang! The sound exploded in the penthouse. A gunshot rang out, sharper than lightning. Marcus felt the air get sucked from his lungs, the pressure crashing in around him. All at once, chaos erupted. People screamed and scattered. Someone fell, and bodies collided. Marcus turned, and the world zoomed in on the chaos. He caught Claire's eyes just as pure terror washed over her. "Claire!" he shouted, reaching for her. But another shot fired, and everything went dark. A collective gasp filled the room as everyone froze, minds grappling with the scene unfolding before them. Above the din, the thudding of pulses echoed in his ears. All he could feel was the weight of horror pressing down, a blanket of dread. Then, like a tide, the crowd parted. As the dust settled, Marcus stared ahead, breath suspended. There, lying on the floor, was Ethan. Blood pooled beneath him, coloring the glossy wood in shades of dark red. His eyes were wide, shock etched across his face. Ethan, the man who had promised hope, the titan threatening to change the city's fate, now lay broken. Marcus's heart raced, question marks swirling through his mind. And then it hit him, an overwhelming tidal wave of realization. In that instant, a new voice emerged from the crowd. "This is what you wanted, Marcus. Look what he's become." It was Jamie, Marcus's own brother, eyes wild with anger. "Why? Why would you do this?" Marcus cried, his voice raw with disbelief. "Because you trusted him," Jamie roared back. "It was all a lie. Everything he told you was designed to bring you down." Marcus's heart faltered. Everything he thought he knew, a trust, a future, a gamble for change, had crumbled in a heartbeat. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "You're wrong! We were supposed to bring change!" But Jamie stepped closer, his voice now a whisper, dark and heavy. "And this is what you end up with?" "You're marked, Marcus. He's not just a partner, he's the puppet master, and you're the pawn." Suddenly, the ground beneath Marcus swayed. He staggered, emotions crashing through him like waves. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was an unraveling of the fabric of everything he believed, a shattering of every connection he thought sustained him. And just as the enormity of it all crashed down, the lights flickered, plunging the room into shadow. For a brief, breathless moment, silence blanketed the chaos. But then, in that heavy silence, a phone buzzed to life, echoing eerily against the stillness. The noise sent a chill racing down his spine. Compelled by instinct, he turned, looking for where the sound was coming from. It was Ethan's phone. As the screen lit up, Marcus caught a glimpse of a message flashing across it. One that made his blood run cold. A contact name, bold and pulsing, read, "Your mother's final wish." A shockwave of confusion and dread clawed at his chest. What did that mean? What was tied to Ethan? Suddenly, his world tilted again. The louder sounds of chaos rushed back in. But Marcus stood frozen. He realized he was on the edge of something vast and unfathomable, a chasm that threatened to swallow all he knew. Could he step forward and uncover the truth? Or would he fall deeper into the darkness? As the chaos enveloped the penthouse, Marcus felt a shudder run through him. Ethan was on the floor, blood pooling around him, eyes wide in disbelief. The crowd pressed in, faces twisted in fear, rage, and confusion. Marcus's heart raced. This was not how it was supposed to go. "Everyone stay back!" Jamie yelled, eyes blazing as he stepped forward, trying to command the thrumming energy in the room. Yet the desperation thickened the air. Marcus could hardly breathe as he glanced at Claire, who was still beside him, fear etched on her face. "We need to do something," she urged, eyes darting to Ethan, then to the crowd. Marcus swallowed hard, trembling hands clenching into fists. "Get him out of here!" He pointed at Ethan, who was struggling to breathe, shock etched across his features. "We have to save him!" The crowd hesitated, uncertainty rolling through them like a wave. Some were shouting, others crying out for help, as panic bubbled to the surface. But in that moment of tumult, Claire stepped closer to Marcus, her voice low but urgent. "You need to know the truth about Ethan. The message, it tied him to your past. You can't trust him anymore." Marcus's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "The people he's involved with, they have your brother. They know everything about you. This project was never about the city. It was about filling pockets and silencing voices." A soft murmur from the crowd rippled through, snapping Marcus back to the present. He turned to face them, his voice rising above the murmurs. "Listen, I know we're all scared. We can't let this end in violence. We need to expose the truth together." The murmurs grew louder, some agreeing, some shouting doubts. The emotions were raw, and Marcus could feel the weight of mistrust around him. Then, in the midst of the chaos, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Lena. She ducked through the throng, eyes aflame with determination. "We're not going to let them control us. Not anymore." That sparked a fire in the crowd. They began chanting, "Truth! Justice!" as the sound echoed off the walls. Marcus took a deep breath, searching for strength within himself. "We can reshape this city. We can fight back, but we cannot do it divided." Suddenly, another officer burst through the door, panic written all over his face. "You have to leave now. It's spreading. There's unrest in the streets. We're losing control." The urgency in his voice struck deep within Marcus. "We can't leave Ethan." "Marcus," Claire's voice broke, "if he's involved, the stakes are higher than any of us. The truth isn't safe here." The crowd buzzed with uncertainty, and Marcus's heart raced at the thought of losing everything, including his brother in the shadows. He glanced once more at Ethan, this man who had offered hope, but now lay broken and unrecognizable. Then Jamie stepped forward, eyes locked on his brother. "I need you to make a choice, Marcus. It's either him or us. You can't save both." The weight of that decision hung in the air, cold and heavy. Marcus looked from Jamie to Claire, then to Ethan, who was fading fast. And then, suddenly, the world outside exploded with noise. Echoes of shouts, thousands demanding change, filled the air. The urgency thickened around them, breathing life into the suffocating silence. "Listen!" Marcus shouted, heart pounding in his chest. "People are out there fighting for change, fighting for a voice. We have to join them." In that moment, something shifted. The crowd began to move, their chants growing louder and more powerful. "Save the city! Change is coming." It was like a surge of electricity pulsing through Marcus's veins. He turned back to Ethan, determination igniting within him. "You want forgiveness? Help us stand against this." Ethan blinked, still fighting for air, as his eyes searched Marcus's face for understanding. You can't trust me, he gasped, frail and raw. I'm not here to trust you, Marcus replied, voice steady. I'm here to expose you. With a jolt of resolve, Marcus pressed forward, taking the risk. The chaos outside only fueled his determination. He felt Claire's grip on his arm, tight and reassuring. Together, they moved, merging with the surging crowd. They were heading toward the chaos, a storm gathering, a force for change. Outside, the air was thick with tension, but in that moment, surrounded by faces rising for a cause, Marcus felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. And just as they stepped into the fray, the world shifted, the future hanging uncertain and bright. But darkness still loomed. What lay ahead was a mystery waiting to unfold. Would they prevail, or would the shadows consume them all? As the moment faded, the scene became a canvas of possibilities, stretching into the realm of what might be. And now, if you want to be part of this journey, you have to subscribe immediately. Don't wait even a second longer to share this with your friends. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and ensure you don't miss any upcoming exclusive stories. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through your engagement.